Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sahaj Times. Today we're going to it's that part of the year, right, where we start to talk about marriages in Sahaj. So the topic of today is Sahaj Marriages. We call this episode, what is below the iceberg, right? And the idea is for those 2 weeks at Ganesha Puja, there is so much attention on marriages. It's almost like a bit of a frenzy state, right? And then all of a sudden, all of that disappear. For the rest of the year, we don't think about it, we don't put attention, we don't prepare for it. But there is a whole huge machinery behind the Sahaj marriages that contributes to the success of Sahaj marriages. In other words, it's not just those 2 weeks that make the Sahaj marriages, but it's the entire year and the many years of preparation that everyone, applicants, friends, families, collectives, leaders, marriage committee, everyone together works toward that goal of having successful matches. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that, what's behind the curtain, right? Um, we'll introduce the guest in a few minutes. But before we do that, I just wanted to explain that we are not experts and we're not speaking in any sorts of official capacity. We're just sharing some stories and help the collective think or put their attention on certain things. There's no other agenda, and again, there's no any sorts of authority of this episode over such marriages. We do not represent the International Marriage Committee. We are just a few yogis that got together at a chat and enjoys sharing some stories with you. The person who's going to be introduced, it's somebody that has a little bit of experience as a local coordinator in signing forms as well as me. And so we're also going to share some experience of chats we had or situations that we encountered that we felt needed a bit of work out. You've already seen her in the past, actually. She's been here on the podcast in the past. Name is Romina, comes from Argentina/USA. She's a very dear sister of mine. So without further ado, here we go.
Fabri.
Hello, Romy. Welcome. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Very well, very happy to be here. I mean, we talk about this since so long, and I think it's a long due that we do a podcast about it.
Yes. And actually, before we start, I'm going to pull my ears because I wanted to say this and I forgot. Today, it's in a way a bit of a sad day because Lele is not here, our dear host of the podcast. But as you guys probably have seen, he's rolling one episode per week. He's very busy. Actually, as we're doing this, he's recording another episode. So we're splitting tasks. And yes, just a quick moment to say we miss you, Lele, and we wish you were here. But we'll definitely see you at the next one. All right. Without further ado, Romy, how are you? Sorry?
I said that we have very big shoes to fill without Lele
Yes,
here.
yes,
Don't
yes.
get too nervous, Fabri.
You,
I'll give you support.
what's funny is that I've never done the introduction first, like as in to start speaking, and it is really hard to do. Like I was totally panicking as I started speaking. Now I know how difficult it is for him, and especially knowing that I usually try to disturb him and annoy him during the beginning. It must be much harder for him to do this.
Now you know.
Yes. All right, Romy. So here we are, Sahaj Marriages. The what's below the iceberg. Well, first of all, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the last episode you did with us, and it was fun.
Oh, it was a lot of fun, really. Both Pragya and Nira, they have such great insights about it, and with you and Lily, we had a lot of fun. It was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Now you also know what's below the tip of the iceberg of Sahaj Times. What
Yes,
goes in
a
the
lot of work.
background?
You guys really dedicate a lot of time to this, and it deserves really recognition because your attention is all the time in the many topics that are important for collective communication, raising awareness. It's we all benefit from it.
I was actually telling because for those that didn't watch, the episode we're talking about is called the Wheels of the Chariot, right? And it was
Yes.
about gender and synergies, in society and in such. And it's quite funny. I don't know if you felt that, Rome, but so many people told me they were like, "Wow, you guys were so good. Usually it's a difficult topic, and you were laughing and enjoying, and it looked so easy and smooth." And I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Yes," but that was the third time we met, right?
That is true.
it,
That's true.
you have to walk yourself there, right, to a certain extent.
Yes, yes, because I guess it's a process of introspection. As with any topic, you start discussing and then you go deeper and deeper, and you realize that there are so many areas. I'm sure we're going to go through that today.
Exactly, exactly. And that to me is also the nice thing of the podcast is, usually we meet, we discuss, you prepare some points in advance, but always something else comes up. You always learn from it, and just by talking about it, you raise your awareness, as you do it. So that's the important part.
100%.
All right, lovely. So we go straight to the first question. I'm sure people will be very interested to know. Now that we make such a big introduction, expectation of an iceberg, very, very, very difficult task to fulfill now. Okay, the first question is this. Uh, let's talk a little bit about preparation for marriages. Not just, how can we prepare as an individual apply, but as a collective, what kind of things we can do together to give the best chance to these, people going through this very tough, process, by the way, right? Which is not an easy process at all.
Very true. I mean, generally, we talk about marriages and we think of the candidates, right, that are going to apply for marriages. And while everybody knows that if you are going to do this, you have to work on everything your mental, emotional, and spiritual maturity. But there is so much around it. There are so many players around it, starting with the collective, your local collective, and maybe the yogis that are married and you look up to. So, what is the synergy there? Is a candidate supposed to go and talk to these yogis who have a Sahaj marriage experience, or vice versa? Well, maybe it's both ways. And similarly with uncles and
It's a bit
aunties,
of
they
both.
need support. So, the leadership is equally very important. If you are in a coordinator role, looking at the collective and seeing which are the possible candidates and talking to them and um, basically sharing experiences. I think it is a process of love, just like you do in a
Yeah,
family. Anything that happens in a family is discussed, right? So it's not like you said, Fabri. It's not something that happens during marriage season during those 2 weeks. It's something that happens
exactly.
probably for years before.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I exactly was also thinking is, I mean, oftentimes, for example, we prepare a workshop in June or May, right? A few months before. And that's nice to attend. But that workshop is only useful for those candidates that are a few inches below the line of understanding, right? If you're 5, 10 meters below, that workshop by itself will not make you do that jump that you didn't do in the past 5 years, right? So I
No,
really feel, to me personally, this nourishment, this education about such marriages is something that, as you said, is developed through a decade, maybe. Why not? Since
exactly.
you're like 18, 17, 18, you should start talking about it. Now, the question is this for me: who is the right person to talk to you?
Then again, I mean, sometimes you have this amazing uncle or auntie that comes to you. I remember having my first conversation about Sahaj marriage at age 18.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
so far from making any decision about it. But it is the day of today that I still remember that conversation. It imprinted in me. And I think that once again, we all have a responsibility of, if it comes from love, if it comes from empathy, we can even talk to a young Yuba about it.
Yeah,
Um, but then again, it shouldn't come from you must do this. It shouldn't come from pressure or because you're ready in terms of age and these things. It has to come from love, from the fact that is this something that
exactly.
you're considering? This is my experience, and see what's the view.
Exactly. And I think actually, as you were speaking, see, this we didn't prepare, but just came to my attention. I feel because you have kids, I have kids, and we can see that in this modern day, they are getting exposed to certain concepts much earlier than you would have in other times, right?
Yeah.
So, because that threat is coming earlier, somehow also us as a community, we have to wake up a bit earlier. And yes, maybe you start talking about the concept of marriage, not, put your name down at
Yes.
15, 16, because they're already being attacked at their age, right?
Yeah. 100%. And let's think one step forward, which is now we have a number of let's say two or three series of marriages, right? And basically now our children are seeing our Sahaj marriages, and not all of the Sahaj marriages are super successful. Some
Yeah,
are, and that's great, but the children that are in homes where the Sahaj marriage is probably not going so well at that time, which doesn't mean that it wasn't great at the beginning, right?
yeah, yeah,
uh, Sometimes they are like, is this what I want? And a child or a young person that has very limited experience of life cannot see all of the challenges that their parents went through, whether
yeah,
challenges in terms of vibrational challenges, health challenges, work challenges, the challenges of life. And they
yeah,
judge also. So
yeah.
it is that's why the participation of the collective is so important, because there is so much more than the one case that you see close to.
Exactly. Actually, I had this chat with a few friends of mine that their parents were married in Sahaj and it didn't work. And you could see that really there was a scar in them. And they were saying, I know that if I get married in Sahaj, it will not work. They felt there was some sort of a curse, because it's something really hard to undo. But to me, again, that's where the collective comes in because there are so many beautiful couples in the collective. And those couples, a little bit without too much pressure, they should feel this responsibility of expressing their love toward the youth and show them how their marriage is working and why. And I think sometimes, even us, me, and we're just not aware of how much of positive influence we can have on the younger generation by inviting them to your house. I know you do this amazingly, Romy. Play some board games. These that have fun with them. Like, oh look, such parents are fun, and it's important.
It's important. I mean, that's a hatch. Srimataji always said we should have fun. I remember
Yeah,
one story that a yogi was building her house here in New Jersey, and he was doing it with so much joy. He was grabbing the bricks and he was singing and he was putting one on top of the other. And then she's
yeah,
commenting with another yogi, "Do you look at that yogi?" And she's like, "Feel the vibrations." And this yogi is like, "Srimataji, I feel the vibrations and I feel a lot of left side." And she looks at him and she said, "That's you. Just put the attention around this yogi. And he's like, "Oh, now, yes, I feel the joy." And she says, "Exactly. We should live life like that with joy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's awesome. And also, I another thing that came to my mind. At least this is my experience. I don't know if you did this from it, but I had the. I mean, I was living in Italy, so I was lucky because the marriages were just next door, every year. But I had the opportunity to participate as a best brother or as somebody that helps with the marriages, right?
Yes.
And what happened is that I've seen year after year all my friends, older brothers, sisters, uncles, getting married, and I saw it all. I saw the joy, the beauty, the stress. the challenges, the doubt. And it's so important to put yourself in an environment as much as you can, even to see the bad things, because when then you have a doubt, you're like, okay, that's normal, because I've seen many people going through that and overcoming it, right? So that to me was also an amazing blessing of being able to participate in somebody else's ceremony as a young person. But then you have to make the time, right, and the effort to be there earlier and do all of those efforts.
100%. Well, and that is Sahaj. You see always the representation in the collective of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that will always remain. Now, the
Exactly.
question is, where is our attention?
Yeah.
Where do you want to direct your attention?
Yeah. 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 I, I had this memory of this. I had this friend, a friend. He was older than me. He was like 8 years older, and he got married. It was one of the first one of the people I knew he was getting married, and I was helping with his marriage. And we're in Cabela, and it was the cutest thing ever. He spent the entire 5 days stumbling into things because he would walk only looking into the ground.
Oh, my
And
sweet.
I'm like, dude, what? I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? You know, like, why are you so weird? You know? And he said the sweetest thing is like, you know what I thought? Any of these people here could be my wife. I don't want to look at her before the marriage. And so this guy spent the whole week tripping on wires and stuff because he just didn't want to look up. But it was so sweet at the same time, you know, that sweet fragrance of innocence. You know, I thought it was very cute.
It is sweet, but with that perspective, you will have to have a lifetime of looking down. How many yogis have met, in different pujas, they have cross paths, and
Yes, yes. No,
possible
but
to.
he did it only for the 2 3 days before, not for the not for life. uh, and Romy, there is another thing also that I you said and I picked up, and I think it's important to share a bit, maybe more in details. And I think in the US also, this I don't want to. I mean, everywhere might happen, but I've heard a few stories in the US a bit, and it's also maybe sometimes a cultural thing. On one hand, we need to support our yuvas early. On the other hand, if we make them feel too pressured, especially I would say young ladies, because that's where the pressure usually hits harder,
Mhm.
we drive them away. Like if they feel that this is not support, but it's like, hey, you know, you're 23, what are you doing with your life? Get married, have kids. That's a bit off-putting, right? And I think as a
100%.
collective, we need to be a bit careful with that, right?
Well, you're describing a situation that I have in my own home. I have two kids. One already crossed the teenage years and is in college, and the other one is a teenager herself. So, I go back to the fact that we gave them a life with, full of Sahaj experiences, from the vibrational experience of meditations at home to the collective and Sahaj schools and the whole thing. But eventually, these kids, all of them, they want to feel life, not only within the Sahaj circle. They want to see what's out there, and each one of them chooses to do it in different degrees.
Yeah,
So, what do you do as a Sahaj parent? You know what's the beginning and the end of the story. You tell
yeah,
them what is going to happen. You sit down with them. Now, some parents choose to prohibit, and what I have seen is that prohibition only takes the children to hide, which is very sad, because if the parents got to know, they will feel very hurt. And
yeah,
then the other side is to be open about it and respect your differences, and then just see your child get hurt when they take wrong decisions.
yeah,
And sometimes that is life. You have to just, after a discussion, let your kid go through what they have to do, and, accompanying them, seeing that they're about to fall. And
yeah,
then they will learn. I have seen that multiple times, not only in terms of, relationships or life choices, but it is difficult to get detached. And that I guess is the end of the story.
is
And
the key of
as
it.
parents,
Yeah,
we give what we can, and then we have to get detached.
yeah. But also I feel, I mean, this it's hard to make a single example because Depends on how the kids grow up, where, and in which collective and this and that. But whatever I feel in general is that if possible, in the ideal world, you want these kids to look forward to get married in Sahaj, not because it's something we're imposing, but because it's something so beautiful and exciting in a spiritual way. It's something so beautifully expressed that then like, oh wow, I'm so lucky I can take this route, right? And
True.
that's, of course, that's the ideal place. It not always you come from there, right?
Yes.
But if you ever wish, that's the way you will want it to happen, right? It's like, I'm gonna show it to you so beautifully that you're gonna ask me about it, versus me telling you this is the only way, and if you don't do it, you go to hell, and etc., etc.
I don't know, Fabri, my expectations have gotten lower. If Lele was here, I would have to tell you I disagree with you. I would love to experience that with my kids, but I
Yeah,
also feel that if for some reason they meet a very special soul and that person respects our values and that person wants to,
yeah,
practice and establish in Sahaj, because there are so many seekers in the world and, Sacha Yoga blows people's minds. Why not to bring a new yogi into the college?
absolutely.
I wouldn't be upset about it. I will be happy about it. But then again, I mean, it's a topic that is discussed, and whatever works best for their growth. I think that
For
that's
the
that's
child,
what matters.
absolutely.
And you're right. I mean, when you see potential, not only within your kids, in all the US, in all the young people, you would love to see a Sahaj marriage, take place
Yeah,
because like both of them are in Sahaj, both of them have a Sahaj track of experiences, etc. But then again, there are alternatives, and we should be open to them as well.
absolutely. And then I say this thing about such marriages, or even about such schools. You can say they make the same arrangement, meaning if you can go and have that experience, is amazing. If you don't go, it's not like your life stops there, right? It's not. But the way I remember chatting with the Yuva about this, I was like, look, you should never feel forced to do this, right? And actually, to a certain extent, Sahaj marriage, if you wish, is a bit harder, right? Because you're gonna be matched with somebody that's gonna make you work and grow, right? Force
Yes,
that growth in you, right? So it is
yes,
even a bit up. So you have to be ready, which goes to our next topic. But but my point is this, and that in very practical, uh, borderline superficial term, that's how I explained it to the Yuva. I was like, look, it's okay to go to any other university, but if you can go to MIT, you should try to go to MIT. You know what I
mm,
mean? If you
yeah,
can. Now, if you don't go to MIT, that doesn't make you a bad yogi, or there's many people in MIT that are less smart than a normal university. It's not a universal, but like, just simply put, if you can go through something that the Adi Shakti has created, it sounds like a good idea, right? In
yes, yeah,
general.
yes,
And then,
100%.
there's many that do it and it doesn't work, and there's many that don't be. It's a different story. But just as a starting path, and the same is with such schools, right? Not every kid needs to go to such schools. But if you can have that experience, or if you can live in an ashram for some time, this is all things that, generically you can look forward to, right? And you don't have to. There's many other paths that maybe are even better for you, but as
Exactly,
a generic, right? Which
100%.
Romy, which all of this magically leads us to the next question, which is, next topic is, am I ready? And how do I know if I am ready for Sahaj marriage? Because as you correctly said, not everybody has to do it. It's not a stamp that you need to get, right?
It can be really hard if you push it and you go through that. You can fall really fast.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I guess readiness, at least in the experiences of marriages with the ladies, the conclusion is always you will never know if you are ready or not. You go through the experience. But I guess that, I call it the Sahaj Foundation 101 when you take a foundation course, that
yeah,
there are certain things that in that foundation should be well established. Like, for example, if a person didn't recognize Srimataji, whether it's a yuva that was born in Sahaj, because they go
yeah,
through that. Sometimes they are they take this for granted, but is there a recognition truly in their hearts, in their
Yeah,
sahasraras? Um, in terms of the simplest of the things that I always see struggling in the collective is daily meditation. Do you
yeah,
truly meditate on daily basis? If you do not introspect, if you do not connect yourself, then it's going to be really hard to understand that you want to have a sahaj life with a partner. It's a
yeah,
basic thing, right? and
exactly.
then and then taking it a little bit beyond that is, do you attend regularly pujas? Do you work with the collective in projects? I think that these things are basic, and I experienced during my Yuva Shakti days, because I went all in Sahaj, that when you connect with the collective like this in every single level, the collective gets to know you and treats you and works on you, and vice versa, right? It's a give and take. And all
Yeah,
of that creates that beautiful foundation, that preparation. Even the collective helps you and pushes you to nicely and smoothly take that decision.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, what what to me really is important to think is, aside of your journey, is also the journey of the other person with whom you're matched. Meaning, for example, I give you an example. I know of recently there was this that a very sweet, I'm not gonna say name or anything, but a guy got matched to a girl and is like, look, yeah, I generally meditate, but here and there I drink. And he's like, yeah, it's a little thing I do on the side, but sweet guy. But I think when you're doing this in Sahaj, you need to have the expectation that the person on the other side expects you to fulfill the 101 that you just described. Like, you need to be there. You cannot be like, oh, I'm 60% done, accept me as I am. No, that you cannot. If you, and again, we're not talking about being, Mahatma Gandhi. We're talking about covering the basic, which is, you meditate, you attend collective, you don't drink, smoke, you're not on Tinder, etc., etc. Like
Exactly.
it's the kind of
We're
the
talking about
basics,
the
right?
foundation. If you want to take it to the next level and become an expert and a practitioner, even better. But at least that foundation,
Yeah,
I think, is what's necessary for readiness.
yeah,
Then also the self reflection and the introspection is just so important, because uh, each one of us, we know which are our fears, and we truly need to understand, if there is something that we fear greatly. Well, again, we can discuss it, we can work on it in our meditations, etc. But for example, I have seen cases of girls, that well, it happened to me actually. I was in college. In my third year of college, school was getting really tough, and Sahaja Yoga was too much fun. So
yeah,
I remember going to a beautiful seminar in Brazil and coming back and saying, I'm going to stop studying because this is getting too hard. And Sahaja Yoga is a great thing to do. I'm going to just give self realization and have fun.
yeah,
Thank God that I had a boss at the time. He prohibited me to do that. And he told me, I'll give you all the days you need to study, but you are finishing this study. I
wow,
thanks Rimataji and God, everybody, for
yeah,
sending me that man. But what I'm trying to say with this is, studies get hard. Then you go into low paid jobs. You see that life is getting a little hard, and then you're like, what is my way out? Maybe it's a Sahaj marriage. Let me see if I
yeah,
can find a husband that can sustain me and I can have a better life. I really think that is probably not the most ideal way, because if we don't face ourselves, if we don't face our fears, if we do not prepare ourselves for our marriage, then in the marriage life, things are going to get even heavier and worse, because
tough, yeah,
it's tough, right? To have children, to sustain them, to take care of for them financially, emotionally, physically. So, I mean, this is a case that I have seen multiple times. And, then for the boys, or in both cases, you see young people these days, they date, whether they date short time, long term, whatever. And you see people going through relationships on and on, and suddenly they are, here and there practicing meditation, and they say, these people are getting married and I see that they're happy, maybe I should give this a try. you know. I
Yeah.
think also it's not probably the best thing to do because first you have to clear your muladhara, you have to clear your subtle system, and really jumping into a Sahaj marriage after you have just been in multiple relationships is not the best thing. You know, I remember
Yeah.
I came to Sahaj when I was 17, and it took me a good 1 or 2 years to understand this whole thing of the mariadas and all this. But
Yeah.
then once I did, no more relationships. I made my subtle system really strong and focus on studying and working and in myself.
Yeah.
So it is something that is important for the youth, nowadays, that everything is good, everything is
Yeah.
fine, is
Yeah.
permissible.
And I think something that you said is amazing is that's the way I feel. I feel that getting into a Sahaj marriage is a bit like an amplifier of where you stand. If you are up there, you're gonna have this insane, you hear these people with the miracles and the stories and this and that. But if you have holes, those holes are gonna be there's going to be light on them now and it's going to be exposed. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot overcome it. You can, but you need to come prepared. Like if you know that there is certain areas that you need to work out, those areas will be for sure highlighted. And then you can work it out, but you need to come prepared. One of, at the workshop of the boys this May, I've heard one of the most beautiful things, I think, in this past 5 years that we're doing workshop. It was much. He said, marriage is like we need to think about this. Either you get married in Saj or not, actually, it doesn't matter. Marriage is a pact between you, your spouse, and God. Like this is what it is. You know, it's something where God comes to you, and you agree on something together, right? Either you do it in Saj or not.
Yeah,
So
it's a
the
sacred union, and that's beautiful. Yeah.
it is what it is. Either if you're inside or not, doesn't matter. Marriage has a godly touch to it, right? And that's why you come into it with that understanding, with that gravity, with that desire to work it out. And it doesn't have to be something that you suffer, but I think it's very important. It can be extremely joyous and easy. But I think it's extremely important that you remember at any point in time that God is there, right? And now, especially in such marriages where you literally go to the castle and you say, Shimaji, may I have a husband? May I have a wife? And you're given one, right?
100%.
There's
Yeah,
a very strongly godly involvement in that, right?
definitely.
So that has to be in our mind. And again, it's funny because at the workshop we say that by this we don't mean to scare people. We don't mean it's something sad and grave, and it can be extremely joyous. But that feeling in you that, oh, God is inside the room right now, right? And if you have that, anything, whatever you decide, whatever you do will be okay. But you need to
That's
have that
that's what's
feeling.
going to make your experience truly spiritual, right? If our attention is elevated to that level.
Yeah,
Versus having a tremendous checklist of qualities that you want to see in your spouse. As
exactly.
funny as it sounds, whether hidden or not, there are many people that have a very long list of things that they wish they had in their spouse. And I have to say,
Yeah,
please keep it practical because
yes.
maybe one or two things that are very strong to you. I had my own. I remember
Yeah.
thinking, I don't think I could deal in life with somebody that is lazy because that means so many things to me. Somebody that doesn't care, somebody that is not going to help me, somebody,
I
so many.
can see that. I can see that how it would have not worked.
No, no, that's true. And as you know, Uttam is very laid back and everything, but when he activates, my goodness, he was
he's,
way
a,
beyond me, right?
he's a
So
machine.
he can be a machine, but he can
Yeah.
also truly chill without any issue. So it's an interesting mix. No, and going back to the checklist, especially, well, husband is Indian in my case. So I know I learned the process of Indian marriages, right? And how they go through interviews and they have to date and meet their possible uh, matches, their possible spouses, and then many times it doesn't fly. So they have to meet
Yeah.
somebody else again, and the whole process, it can take months and in some cases years. And it takes money because many times they have to pay somebody to do these arrangements and all of these things. Super time consuming, energy consuming. And I understand that Indians, there is a moment in which they say, instead of going this route, let's try Sahaj marriage and see if God
Yeah.
helps me. And then again, if you had it, see, if you were used to having a checklist of things and expecting that in a possible spouse, it will be really hard that
Yeah.
somebody in Sahaj fulfills all of that, because when we get married in Sahaj, it's like something that has what is the word? It's like a promise, that if you both grow together and help each other, it's going to naturally become something beautiful. But if you expect the other person to be perfect and you do nothing about it, where is that going to take you? Naturally not
Exactly.
to a good place.
Exactly. Exactly. You're right. And I think also you're right that the sometimes we do have little things on the list, and I've met a few people that they got away with it, including me. For example, I now, since we're sharing personal experience, my only fear was that, because I know I'm somebody that likes to shower love on people, right? So I
Hmm.
think for me, the only thing I wouldn't want is a wife that feels self-entitled and will misunderstand the showering of love into her ego and then try to dominate me. Like, I don't know
Yep.
why I had this very fixed, clear example of what I didn't like. And I knew
You
and
never
I,
told me this. This is interesting.
yeah, but because I know myself, because I'm like, I can fight with any wife, but not with my wife. I cannot fight with my. I just cannot. I have a life where I wake up in the morning and fight. It's not. I cannot deal with it. But also, I know that I cannot be dominated. Is that? So I'm like, this no, it's not gonna work, right? So, and it was amazing
That's
because,
so
I mean, my wife is absolutely nothing like that. She's extremely humble, and no matter whatever I do, it's always too much, and she always asks me to do less. So I feel so free to express my sweetness and love, right? Because I feel she never takes it for granted. But to me, it was a thing. But in a way, if you want, it's a subtle expectation rather than oh, I want somebody tall and blonde. It's a different. But even that, funnily enough, and this will make you crack up, few months before getting married, I'm like, okay, dude, you might get somebody like that. So I'm like, practice, practice humility. How are you gonna deal with this? So whenever I was a situation and somebody told me off, I'm like, okay, imagine this was your wife. How would you sweetly deal with this situation? Uh, so I tried to work it out anyway, even though I thought it would be ridiculous. But I still, you make an effort because it might happen, right? So that was my
100%.
that was my
That worked
story.
out a little bit my ego, when my husband told me that he prayed to Sri Mataji that please don't give me a wife that is too beautiful. Who asks this? Who asks this thing? And then I looked at him and I said, so how am I doing here? That's good. You're good, he says. I'm like, all right, thank you. I'm not too beautiful. And then I asked him, but why? Why did you ask for it? He says, because if I have a wife that is too beautiful, my attention will go to another place. So I needed somebody like you.
That is so sweet. I remember having the same chat with another Yuva when I was very young. And he said the same thing. He's like, oh, I really wish I don't get somebody too beautiful because it'll be a problem. And I just look at that and I was like, my friend, that wouldn't be a problem for me. I'm okay with that. I'm fine. Not a big issue. Not a big issue at all.
That's funny. On the
All
other
right.
hand, just one more story that
Yeah.
when I had this first chat of marriage when I was very young, this person came to talk to me about this physical aspect, and what he said is like, look, if you go into Sahaj marriage, and
Yeah,
you eventually all this body, the skin, everything ages, and goes away. And I'm like, what is he
yes.
trying to get to? It took me a while to understand that, and now, already after 20 years of marriage, I can see all of that happening.
I
What
agree.
remains at the end of the day
100% agree.
is that is whatever you built within yourself. The outside is going to start degrading, it goes away. And I recall, I don't know if you ever faced this, but I have met people with, I don't know, something that is not right in their face or something like this. And if the person is sweet and, balanced and everything, there's a moment in which you don't see that imperfection anymore. And the
Yeah.
same thing happens in your marriage. There will be imperfections, but if the love and the respect is there, you don't see all those things so much, or they don't weight so much.
I was thinking about this recently. Same, I had a chat with a guy from Rome, Uncle Massimo told me this. It's like we were talking about marriages, and I'm like, I need to do a workshop. Can you give me some advices? And it's so interesting the way he put it. He said, look, this is almost impossible to understand at 25, right? Because at 25, you cannot understand life at 40. You just can't. It's just, your
Yeah,
brain doesn't compute.
of
It's like,
course.
but almost everything you look into your partner at 25, it's useless at 50. It's like almost everything. And I thought about it because it's not just the look. For example, I've heard a lot, sometimes girls, oh, but I need somebody who makes me laugh, who's charming, when you have two babies and they wake up in the middle of night,
Yeah,
and the guy doesn't want to wake up to help you, doesn't matter how funny or charming it is. It's not funny at all.
exactly.
What you want is somebody who's loyal, committed, devoted to Shimarji, to you, to Sahaj, somebody who doesn't cheat, who's sacrifices for the family. But these are all things that at 25, it's hard to be wise to look for it. And again,
100.
it's not just the look. And guys is the same, right? Maybe they don't look for a girl who's funny, but they look for a girl who's popular. But popular means nothing, zero when you're 40.
Absolutely nothing. It means nothing.
So it's quite interesting. Um, within
Sometimes you
this,
can see actually, now that you and I have been Yuva Shaktis, and then you see with the passing of time that many times popular people, they fall into, because of the exposure. It's hard
yeah,
sometimes for popular people to face all that. And then everybody loves them and wants to be around them. And suddenly, they couldn't settle down,
yeah,
because life was too much fun. And you see the one that was a little bit more lower profile, actually that person settled and
yeah.
everything, and you see them having a very balanced and nice life. So popularity is not always the best ticket you can get.
It's a challenge, yeah. But I mean, the same being famous or the musician, whatever. It's beautiful because you have a talent, but it comes with a you need to watch for your ego, right? But
100%.
it impressed me so much, and as you said, more I go forward with the years, and more I remember this that all the things you look for at 25, the more you go forward, and if you think about it, your marriage started at 25, 30, right? And
Yeah,
you're gonna hopefully live like till 80 or 90, something like that, right?
hopefully. Yes.
So the majority of the years you spend together are out of your prime of good looking.
Exactly.
It's like the majority of the years as you have to deal with kids, with grandkids, with this, that. It's so those
Exactly.
inner qualities really come out.
True. Totally.
Now, talking again, still in the topic of getting ready. Here I have another curveball for you. because because sometimes some people do feel ready, and maybe they inside do, somehow they feel ready, and maybe they're not. And this is a very tough spot as a local coordinator, local leader,
Hmm.
to be faced with a person. And quite frankly, at least in my personal experience, it's actually easier to let the people pass and kick the problem with the IMC, right? So how important is the role of the leader to be honest? And what are the different scenarios that you can come across?
That is so true. I mean, I guess it also depends on the type of collective, right? Because if you're in a small collective, generally coordinators know their people very well. I mean, you have them all close by, you meet every single week, etc. So you are able to mentor somebody on the on weekly basis, probably, and it has happened to me that somebody came and they're like, I want to get married. They were not even done with their studies and no job ever. I was like, you're finishing your studies next year. And I set a target. Maybe if
Yeah,
you finish your studies, work a little bit, think about it maybe in 1 or 2 years, and saying no was simple because I had a connection with this person. So, uh,
yeah,
you know, the yogini didn't take it badly. She was like, okay, I'm going to work on it. And she did. And eventually she got married and it was beautiful.
yeah,
But then again, if you are a coordinator in a large collective, probably you need to reach out to people who are well connected in the collective because, first of all, in large collectives, you're going to have so much more work, so many more Sahaj activities. Maybe you have, basically not so much time. And on the other hand, you have to reach out to people that know the candidates, the possible candidates. So why not
yeah,
create what we call focal points of marriage focal
yeah,
points? Because that interaction in the interview process, I truly disagree completely with the people that send a form, a marriage form, and say, fill it up, send it back to me, and I'll sign it. I
yeah,
disagree with that methodology. There has to be not only a conversation about, what it entails, answering the questions of the form, answering even more questions. Actually, in the US, we came up with a very comprehensive questionnaire that I think the IMC recently implemented for this year because it is important to cover as many aspects as possible.
yeah,
It's not a joke. You're going to transform your life with another person. And dedicating the time to understanding and guiding that person is just very important. Also, in Sahaj these days, people travel a lot. People live in different collectives. So you get to see people coming into, at least our collective is very big. You don't even know where these people were before. You don't even know if they were good
exactly.
yogis, if they didn't do, things that were as Sahaj, whatever it is. So suddenly they want to get married. You have to have a vetting process, a reference check, calling previous coordinators, because it's your responsibility to present this person as a candidate for marriage.
Exactly.
And we also discovered that not only at the local level, but also the national has to be involved in this, in
Yeah,
reviewing forms, also having another interview together with the local coordinator and the candidate in order to make sure that, okay, is there anything that is a window that didn't close properly? And again, if there has to be more vetting, and I don't mean to say that people need to be grilled and roasted or anything like this, but
yeah,
again, if you're a candidate that did all the Sahaj Foundation and more, you want everybody to get ready to that level, right? And be presented,
yeah,
they are up to the level. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, not, I mean, I think that everybody has heard of the cases where people were presenting a form where they were not even properly divorced, or they were
yeah,
matched, they didn't say that they had children, or suddenly there is some uh, health issue that is going to affect their marriage life and it was not even disclosed in the form or when they
yeah,
did it. These things are very, very sensitive.
yeah. And I think here I'm a big proponent of it. Like even I think 2 months ago we did a podcast with the central committee, and I think it's nobody's fault, but sometimes in Sahaj, it's hard to see what is the big picture. You see what's in front of your eyes, right? Like as we say, the iceberg, those 2 weeks in Cabela. And I've heard so many times somebody got matched or one of their friends got matched and it didn't work, whatever, and everybody's media is like, oh, but how is the IMC doing these matches and blah blah, and how can they let this guy, how can they let that guy? Now we really need to take a moment and understand this. There is maybe 18, 19 members of the IMC, I'm not sure. The ones I know, all very nice people, very nice yogis, at least sincere in their heart in what they do. There is 194 countries in the world, right? There's I don't know how many Saja yogis in the world. We cannot expect those 18 people in the IMC to know deeply every single person everywhere and figure things out. So we rely completely on the system of national and local coordinator. That is actually the vetting process is there. If there is a mistake, it's there. It's not the IMC, the 13 people who's supposed to know the 500 applicants.
It's too
Is
late.
the yeah, right. Is the guy from the US who gets maybe 12 people per year that needs to look after them, right?
Exactly.
And so that to me is the first point, is to understand, and the local coordinator needs to be empowered and made aware of how important the role is. Because as you correctly say, there are so many instances. There is sometimes the candidates are not forthcoming and genuine, right? So as you said, omission of information. And even there's a whole chapter, because if you think about it, your form may even go through, right?
Yeah.
But who are you lying to? Are you lying to Romina from New Jersey Council, or are you lying to Daddy Shakti? That's the question. As an
Exactly.
applicant,
Exactly.
ask yourself, who am I lying to on the form, right?
Yes. Yes.
So to a certain extent, if you ask me, if I was in that situation, I rather my application be stopped by Romina for whatever reason she thought, that go through in a way that it was not meant to the Adishakti. That's the outlook we should have, right? So you have one. The other thing, as you correctly mentioned, is that sometimes is lack of information. Literally, somebody from Arkansas, where there is no Sahaj, lives there. Nobody knows them, but to a certain extent, it's not their fault, right? They just live in Arkansas. So there, you really need to use all your capacity to figure out things and spend a lot of time with this person. Then another, I wrote a few instances. Another one is medical issues, right? Or strong, as you said, somebody who already has kids, somebody who was already married. I think we cannot assume because somebody has some sort of medical condition they should never be allowed to get married, but we should be very clear about it, of what is happening, and the other person needs to be made very aware. As an example, I actually know a story, and for all of those that think, oh, now everything is messed up, before it was perfect, I actually know a story from early 2000 where Shimaji was there, actually even the 90s, where a leader from a specific country knew of a medical condition of a woman. She got married, they got matched, everything went through, and then this condition came out of nowhere. And then leader was kicked out of Sahaj by Shimaji. Now, Shimaji's Mahamaya, right? She, of course, she knows everything, but we don't know. We don't see the game where it goes and what it does. All you know that you don't want to be part of it if it's if it's messed up, right? That's the only thing you know, right? So to me, there's another thing very important for people to understand is that the Maya around the marriages has always existed. It's not like it started in 2005 or 2012 or 8.
Yeah.
Because it is a process. It is a process of learning for all the people involved who need to make the right decision. And the last thing that I pointed out also for me, I don't know if it happened to you, Romy, but I once had to say no to an applicant who was my friend. And he was
That's a tough one.
extremely, it was the toughest thing to do on earth, because I love them, because I want them to get married, because everything in me wanted to give them a chance, but I checked the vibrations and they were hot. And it was the hardest thing to convey that. But again, as I was doing that, I tried not to put my attention on my friend, but on the potential spouse that will be matched to him, that or her, that they were not ready, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, okay, I love my friend and I want them to get married, but do I love the other person? Is she also my sister, or
Yeah.
is all, or only the applicant is my sister, right? Or brother or sister, right? So that to me is also where, as a such family, we need to become global and universal, because it's not only the person who's applying who's your friend. The spouse that you don't know is
Yes.
your brother, sister, nephew, niece, right?
Yeah.
And you need to
Yeah.
look after them the same.
And in these days where in Sahaj we all have many relatives also practicing Sahaj, I would say that in the cases where there are underlying health issues or things that truly will impact the marriage, it is good to bring on board the other parts of the family. I mean, not only the blood family, but also the close circle
Yeah,
of friends that are around that particular yogi. And I also had to do that. So,
yeah,
and whoever I contacted, they were like, we are on board. We're going to help. The yogi was like, I will disclose when I get matched, and everything will be done with transparency. And I have seen it. I have seen how marriages, if they have the proper support of the collective, they can work
exactly.
well with more effort, definitely.
Yeah,
There is one more thing to take care of, but
yeah,
yeah, for sure. And another thing that I have heard many times on the topic of, why is the IMC not doing this or the other thing? you know, it's amazing because IMC has to do the announcements of the marriage applications. They have to do the workshops for the local and the national coordinators, workshops for the candidates, the gathering of all hundreds and hundreds of applications, reviewing the applications, sorting them
yeah,
out, seeking clarifications because even if you do the proper due diligence of the local, the national, it goes to IMC, they may have questions and surely need to be answered. The vibrational check, which can take weeks, and then coordinating the marriage events from announcements, sending emails, counseling to the candidates, the Gauri Puja for the ladies, the Ganesha Puja for the men, the marriage ceremony, which is gigantic. So when people tell me, what does the IMC do, and I get angry with them, I just feel like giving them a match, because we
yeah,
have troops of great quality of yogis putting their blood and sweat into ensuring that this Hajj culture is protected, because that's
yeah,
what it is. It's a demonstration of pure love. And instead of receiving the recognition for all of that dedication, they get
yeah.
the opposite. That really infuriates.
Hurts. Yeah. And also, you know what? I had this thought the other day. Once I was leading a puja, and I was young. I was a little yuva, and I wanted to show I was humble. So before leading, I was putting the chairs in. And this uncle comes very nice. He's like, "What are you doing? Just go sit down and meditate." And he's like, "You're leading the puja. Your attention is gonna guide everyone. So your job is to go into the vibrations. I'm gonna put the chairs. It's fine. You go into the vibrations." And it made me think a year later. If you think about the IMC, they are the people that they meet at the castle, and the most important thing they need to do is to check that the vibrations for a specific couple are cool or not. If you want, that is really the only job that matters in their life. And in a way, they're a little bit like the pujari. They
Yeah,
should
yeah.
be
You have to be at the
given
stage. Yes.
they should be given the space, though, also, and attention to just do that. So now sometimes there are instances where, okay, this guy applied, nobody knows from where, or was let through and was not met. But that, again, that job of gatekeeping, of vetting, cannot be the IMC. It has to be the local coordinators, the national coordinator. So if you got matched to somebody who's a drunk person and you're upset at it, go find out who signed the form and
Exactly.
scream at them. That's fine.
Yes. That
It
that
cannot
should
be
be
the
your route.
MC. Exactly.
Sorry to
Exactly.
all the local coordinators, because you see, they also have to put a lot of effort. And then again, it depends if you have a small collective or large collective, and you cannot
Absolutely.
be the all knowing of every little thing. That's
Absolutely.
why it goes back to the candidate, Fabri. If a candidate
Yeah.
fills out a form with sincerity, like you said, thinking and feeling that they are presenting it to Sri Mataji and not to a local, national, or IMC, then they are going to do it from their heart with complete sincerity. And I can tell you, you do that, and the divine is going to reward you.
Exactly.
I remember having to put in my marriage form that I had to support my family financially. I was very young, and I did it since, as you know, early stages of life. And somebody told me, don't do that. That will decrease your chances of getting a match. I didn't care about it. And I have to say, it went through it that way. It did cause some questions. There were questions like,
Yeah.
why is this girl, now somebody's going to have to support her financially? But then everything worked out. The moment I got married, I was able to work. It was never a problem. Money was never a problem. So
Absolutely.
I really hope that the candidates always fill out the form with sincerity, because that will come back to them.
Yeah, yeah. No, and as you said, ultimately, if you understand that all of this is actually between you and Shimaraji, like when you feel that form, she's there, right? Including the Maya of things not working, or you lie and it still goes through, she's still there watching. It's not like she doesn't know, right?
Exactly. That
Before as
freaks me
now.
out sometimes, even when I am alone, I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like I'm looking around. You have to feel that God is looking at you all the time. And then if
Yeah,
we all felt this all the time, we would truly act, speak, do everything very differently.
exactly. So it's so amazing, and I feel like we hit 40% of what we wanted to talk about in the
Yeah.
first 1 hour. We might have to have a second part, but I think we still have a good 15 minutes. We can go 15 more
Let's
minutes.
get through it.
Yes, or we pick the most important part. One thing that to me is really in my heart, and I'll let you also choose one later if you want. Is I feel also one thing that we need to come away from in terms of understanding or philosophy of life is that if the match doesn't work, is the end of the world, and it was all wasted, and there's no great growth opportunity. I feel that first of all, there were cases in which, even in the past, Shimaji matched people, the person say no, and Shimaji say yes, it was a test, right? Now, very unique cases. I'm not saying that it's true for everyone, but the point I'm trying to make here is that no matter what happened, no matter who does a mistake, there is a growth opportunity for everyone. And I think as an applicant, this is what you want to do. I remember there was a psychology class I took in the States, and they said, if you play a game and you have a tendency to blame the referee, even if the referee has messed up big time, there is something in your brain that doesn't click. You're not a winning person because you're gonna shift the responsibility on other people toward you. If you don't ask, what could I have done better? Okay, the referee gave 3 penalties that and we lost, but maybe I could have scored 3 goals, right? So I think that attitude, and to me, that goes also back to the need for the community to nourish the participants. So, for example, let's say, and this actually happened to me many times, there were people that got matched and it didn't work. First few weeks, I didn't say anything because it's a trauma, right? Either you say no,
Of
or
course.
somebody say no to you. It's a trauma, right? It's a tough situation. So you let them be. But then at some point, if you're a friend, you reach out. Hey, how you doing? Da 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 da. And even with some, I remember I'm like, hey, let's not talk. Let's just do a workshop. Let's meet every couple of weeks. We do a workshop, and then slowly things come up, right? And I feel too many times we fall on the two extreme. Either it doesn't work, and we go there and we smash the person. Because you have ego. And of course the person runs away. Or out of privacy, we don't talk at all. And if I have my kids, and let's say for whatever reason I'm not there, and they get matched and it doesn't work and nobody talks to them, that's like the saddest thing that can ever happen in my life. Am I in a family or what? Why is nobody looking after them, right?
That's because that's your approach.
But it should be our family approach, like as people.
Yes, yes. I mean, at the same time, respecting silence is equally important. There have been cases in which somebody's match didn't work or some Maya happened, and I just went to the person. I told them, look, I know you're going through a tough time. I can only imagine what you're going through, and if you feel like talking, just leave the door open. I think that
Exactly.
that is a very kind thing to do, because
Exactly.
sometimes we want to talk to somebody because we want to fulfill that need of give me the
Our
information,
role.
what
Yeah.
happened. It's about you. But the moment that you make it about the other person and you give them the chance to talk
Yeah.
whenever they feel ready, you
Yeah.
know, it's such a difference, right?
It makes a big difference. Absolutely. At the same time, but
But
no, it's not but this is a cool story because I was talking with another yogi about it. And he said, if I sign a form and it doesn't work, I am happy to let the person be for some time, but at some point we need to have a chat of why it doesn't work. And that doesn't mean that they it was wrong that they say no. It's fine that they say no, but we need to speak about it because we need to grow out of it together. The
Yes.
same way you took time to come and I took time to sign your form, we're gonna take time to figure out why it didn't work. And again, it's done out of love, out of nourishment, out of support. And he told me this really cool story because yeah, I think he was a boy, and it's like, hey, take your time, work on yourself, blah, blah, but when you're ready, let's talk. And the person's like, well, who are you? I don't think we need to talk, like you're not like my father. And it's like, well, I'm not your father, but the person to whom you say no, which I don't even know, is my niece. So you better you better tell me why you say no to my niece.
Look at
But
that.
but
Yes, it is true. That should be the thought process.
that's the thought process. It's
Yes.
a good right heart, right? So and
Yes.
again, whenever I share this, I feel sometimes people they feel like it's a top down force approach of it is not that. It is again something that I know of myself. If I went through something like that, I probably would need a little loving nudge to open up and to
Yes.
introspect, and it will
Exactly.
help me.
Sometimes, that is the beauty of the collective. We remain with certain issues that we face in life on the surface. And then you meet this yogi that allows you to go a little that deeper into it. And
Yeah,
that then allows you to, work on the topic or introspect on the topic. Sometimes we're not
exactly,
even aware of certain conditionings that we may have. I mean,
exactly.
I have seen the typical, which are the top three conditionings that you face in Sahaj matches.
What
First of all,
the
skin color. The
yes,
topic, oh my God, of the skin. I love it because I consider myself white. My husband is from South India. He has quite a bit of color. And he doesn't consider himself black. We always talk about these things. There are ranges of black in India.
yes,
The
yes,
light brown and the medium and the
yeah,
burn, and the extremely brown and the dark. It's so interesting, this thing of
yeah,
color. Then financial status,
yeah,
education, academics, right?
yeah,
It's quite interesting how all of these conditionings are there. And I always say Sahaj marriage is truly a promise. I only had a bachelor's degree when I got married, and then I pursued my master's degree later on. It doesn't mean that life stops with that, with marriage. In
yeah,
fact, you have most of your life in your married life to continue
yeah.
evolve yourself and your spouse.
Actually, there is something that Auntie Victoria once told me, and I found it absolutely lovely. She was saying, you get a batch of candidates, right? And first of all, you have, let's say more women, less men, etc., etc. But it's actually impossible to have the same amount of people that are completely perfectly aligned with each other for everything. It's just not possible. So sometimes a guy is a bit smarter, the girl is a bit sweeter, or there is the little changes here and there, right? But what she said, which it would have never hit my mind, because I heard a few times this thing that I don't know if it was Shimaji, but many yogis told me, they
Hmm.
said, you get matched with somebody at your spiritual level, right? And so, me being an extremely logical and linear person, I had just this picture of myself be a number eight and getting matched with number eight, and just like this
Exactly. It's
very
not like that.
mechanical, Not only is not like that, because of course, as you said, maybe you're better at some things are worse than others, but also you're matched with a person who has the potential to reach the same high level as you. So this is something Antitori told me, which is amazing. Like, sometimes the girl might be a nine and he's a seven. So he's actually not there yet, but he has everything to get up. But what it takes is your wisdom and patience to be like, okay, I'm gonna make this work and I'm gonna help him. And somebody, she or he might become better than you from below, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But you need to have that view which is open, which is not linear to this very moment. And then you
100%.
do through
I mean,
vibrations only.
the statistics is, I guess it is 5 women to 1 man. If vibrationally of those 5 women you choose the one in highest in vibrations, or the one that matches the boy, probably she will potentially be more evolved at the time of matching. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
um poor my husband. But you know he was more inexperienced in many aspects of life,
Yeah.
and then he had to come up to a certain level, and me too, I mean, in other aspects of life.
Yeah.
So it's a give and take, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. But to me, it is something that I guess when Auntie said that, I felt very grateful that I wasn't put through that test
Yes.
because I was not mature. I think I would have not mature enough to make it. Like I would have been like, oh, but this person doesn't understand Saj like I do. Like something like that. I would have reacted. Like whereas where I met my Shakti, my wife, I I
Oh, that's
I
sweet.
felt I felt that immediate lock, that immediate exchange, that immediate we can teach each other, right? But I
Exactly.
thought about it. I'm like, I was just not humble at all because I would have not be able to see beyond that day. And it's something very important, very extremely subtle, I guess. And Auntie, after doing marriages for 20 years, could see that, right? So that's something always kind of shocked me to think about it.
Very true.
Romy, so we hit a lot of good points. Again, I think we need to do, especially if people will enjoy this and let us know that it was good. We maybe would do a number two part. Is there any of the extra questions we had
I think
that
that
you feel like
the
we should
only
hit?
thing is just to finish the cycle, right, of the process of marriage, and then when the couples come together, once again, the collective has a huge role in helping the couple settle down. Because sometimes you see these couples that get married and then they kind of disappear from the collective. And, I think that the local collective should feel that they need to reach out, you need to embrace them. If we truly are a family, is the moment to help them feel part of that family. They are not disconnected because they got married. They are already part of that family, and that means, especially if the girls generally are the ones that move these days, that is changing a lot, I
Exactly.
know. But let's understand that that girl left her family, her country, her culture, all the important things to move to this new place and work for Sahaj and establish a Sahaj family. So
Exactly.
it's like gold coming your way.
Exactly. And this is something that I also think, not necessarily, depending on the culture or maybe the family, is not something that is very natural for people to understand. Like I remember, even I spoke to a boy, his wife just came over, and he went to the program and he just went hang out with the boys, and the wife, it was just like sitting there, like talking to nobody. And I was like, dude, what you doing? Like it's your job. It's like, no, but if I go to another country, I just go and talk to other people. I'm like, yeah, that's you.
That's you.
But it is your job as a husband. You are welcoming your wife. It is your job to make her feel comfortable here. It is not her job. It is your job. But it wouldn't come necessarily natural, right? And again, this goes back to me of, I don't know how, but I really feel we should have some sort of educational system about Sahaj culture and really put effort and dynamism into it. We need to speak more often. We need to reach deeper. What are the good things? What are the bad things? What are the challenges of marriages? What are these little things? Or even, this is another one that I never had to deal with this because we both moved to America. But for example, if your wife comes to your house or to your city, it is your job to manage the relationship between your wife and your mother-in-law or your
Ah,
parents-in-law.
the mother-in-law topic. That's hilarious.
No, but it
Why
is
poor only the mother-in-law? It's a whole family.
mostly, but
Yes.
yes, the whole fun. But I could see, for example, this would be my case with my mother. It
Yes.
is your job to manage expectation, and sometimes also to tell your family, "Hey,
Back
back
off.
off, back off." She's my wife.
Yes.
That's the other day. That's what I told my kids. They were misbehaving. I'm like, "Hey, before she was your mother, she was my wife. Back off. Like,
Exactly.
leave her
Exactly.
alone. She's my wife."
Yeah, taking the stand of your wife or your husband is are super expressions of love that only establish your marriage stronger and stronger. You know, for those
Exactly.
boys that are mama boys, you know, your mama is not gonna be there, you know, giving you kids and taking care of you when you get sick anymore. It's gonna be your
Yeah,
wife. So you better
exactly.
invest and make
Exactly.
a strong
Exactly.
alliance there.
And there is something also that you guys in the US do very, I mean, at least when I was there, was done very well, but I see still very done very well. And also here in Switzerland, they do very well. I find it so sweet when there is a new couple or a number of new couples coming to the collective. All the aunties here and uncles invite this new couple a Saturday. Like the first 3 4 months, they have this crazy calendar, you know. Every weekend they go somewhere and they get like showered with love because you
Yeah,
understand that the beginning time is the most challenging time where you need to settle yourself. You need to figure out where you stand as a couple and everything, right?
yeah,
And it's so fundamental. Again, I think sometimes we don't remember how fundamental your job can be in helping the marriage become successful by little things. You know, this girl just arrived, invite her for dinner at your house, or go talk to her at the program after the program. Just little things. Or you see her husband, which is your friend, not doing something proper. You just go and say, "Hey, dude,
go and tell them.
no offense, but have you thought about this?" And it
Exactly.
makes a world of difference. A world
No,
of difference.
exactly. I mean, they need to learn to what it is to be with a spouse now, and the collective should help out in the process,
Exactly.
100%. But then
It's
again, I mean, like everything else in our collective, each one of us needs to be able to break out of our little petty things because we all go through challenges in life, right? Everybody has their own challenges in every single way. And sometimes to go beyond this individual aspect of ourselves, it takes that thing. You have to be able to go beyond your own little issues to help the collective. And this is actually one of the key areas. This expands to everything, putting attention on the children, on the yuvas, on our brothers and sisters. It can become quite overwhelming, but if everybody puts a little bit of attention, you know, that's what increases the quality of the collective.
exactly. There is the last thing I want to say because I thought it was a genius idea, but we haven't managed to do it. This Uncle Matteo said from Cabela. He said, "You know what would be amazing is not just a social level, but a vibrational level. If after the match we could establish something like a monthly meditation with all the couples, where you just come there for like 5 6 months. You come there and you only meditate. Then, if you want to stay longer and have a chat with the older couples that are already married for a long time, you also have that. And it can be individual or group. And you can be like, oh, I'm having this challenge, he doesn't do this or she, like a bit of, because some of these challenges also sometimes the couple think is crazy, but actually it's quite normal way of adjusting to each other. So to
Yes.
have that space to express it. And I know that it sounds easy, but actually quite hard to do all of this, with the timelines and the different couples and getting the right people to talk. But I think it could be something very powerful to also vibrationally, again, go a bit beyond the iceberg. Because again, I feel we put so much attention those 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks is like it's only marriage. That's what
Yes.
everybody
Yeah.
talks, even maybe a bit of gossip. And then as soon as these people are married, they're like, all right, bye, see you, good
But
luck.
no, that is true. That is true. And you know, that would be a wonderful thing to do. And we always face the same issue in such a yoga resources, right? It's like
Yeah,
um, also there is an aspect of language, right, and time zones. You don't know where these couples are going to be living, and
yeah,
that's why certain things could potentially be delegated more towards the local collectives instead of having one single body organizing this.
yeah.
But then I guess you and I were all the time thinking, how could things be improved? And
Yes, yes.
definitely more food for thought.
Yeah, awesome. So I think we did perfect. Is slightly above 1 hour, but with the cuts will be quite good. Before we conclude, I just want to try this. We never did before, but so we didn't cover all the topic we wanted. Among the other topic, let me know, Romy, if there's anything that we're missing. But what I
Mhm.
have written down here is um, vibrational work that can be done collectively to support the marriages, having a bit more structured approach of following up on the couples or on the participants and workshop,
Mhm.
having focal points at national level to basically handle everything.
Mhm.
Here's another one that actually we didn't prepare but came to my mind. Sometimes there have been occasions of self matches and people going to the IMC and asked to match them,
Yes.
which is something that is important to discuss too. But today we
True.
won't have time because it's a big one.
True.
Um, uh, how to again also expand a bit more on to vibrationally support, or in terms of structurally support when the match doesn't work. How can you really help somebody?
True.
And then the last one is, yes, how also how to help long term the couples, again, not just when you get matched or just a bit before, but like, because the challenges you have, this somebody recently said, the challenge you have after 10-15 years of marriages are very difficult from the ones that you have after 1 year of marriage, like the kids, so that's also another discussion at all.
I
So
mean,
what I
really,
want,
with all the the issues that you see nowadays, long-term Sahaj marriages face a lot of issues, and that's why some of them get to divorce.
exactly,
So,
yeah,
uh, yeah, in those cases, I many times ask myself, what could I have done differently?
to support,
Sometimes it's not
exactly.
even the collective, but doesn't matter. I mean, definitely a topic for discussion.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask, whoever managed to watch the whole 1 hour of the episodes, is, are these topics interesting? Is it worth to do a second round of interview with Romy on this, or you had enough of marriages? Just let us know in the comments. If if there is enough interest, we'll do part two. All right.
Yes, yes. I believe there will not, because the message is out there, in the fact that everybody should be participating throughout the process. But
Yeah.
no, I'm very happy with how it came out. Really
Yeah.
nice.
So, Romy, thank you so much. It's your second appearance on this podcast. I think it went
What can I
awesome.
say? Thank you for making me popular in this world.
I ha- I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope a little disclaimer to our participants. We were a bit worried, Romy and I, when we decided to do this workshop, because we both have a bit of a brainy approach to
That's
structural things, and we didn't want to make Sahaj marriages be like such a heavy topic. It is joyful, it is beautiful, it is divinely gifted. But what I think again is that if a few key people can think a little bit more, the rest of the people doesn't have to think at all. Like that's the way, so if you're a leader, if you're somebody of responsibility, if you can do your job very properly, everybody else can be continuous thoughtless, right? So that's a bit what would be useful to have.
100%, Fabi. Well
Yeah.
said.
All right, thank you so much everyone for watching. Thank you, Romy, for coming,
Thank you
and
so
we'll
much.
see you at the next episode. Ciao,
Jai Shri
ciao.
Mataji.
Jai Shri Mataji.